happiness is transitory, or it's fleeting, meaning that, when we perceive, everything is going to plan or things meet our expectations, there's not these unforeseen challenges, we can perceive the situation, we can make an assessment, and then our brain creates this wonderful thing called serotonin based on how we're assessing the situation, and we have these moments of happiness. But as Mike said there, in aiming for that or in living that out, we're also vulnerable to, I guess what you'd say, the highs and the lows, right? So you can often be on a bit of an emotional roller coaster with that. And I do want to make it very clear that I'm certainly not saying that it isn't great to feel happy, that it isn't meaningful to have some pleasure in your life in that way. But I think, the first thing to establish is, what actually is going to be sustaining, okay? And, with my clients and in my own life, again, the happiness, it will come and go, and it does come down to perception as the other factor, which everything does, and that's another conversation perhaps. But having that real deep sense of purpose, when we have that, we'll actually find that we embrace the challenges of life in a completely different way because there's meaning associated with it.
Yeah, that's great. I think just going back to that frame of, where are you stuck? What do you want? And how do you get there? I think there's a few stuck things there. In terms of what you want, Mike mentioned there, hey, in the first part of the message, he said, look, anything that I'm working towards that would feel like a sense of progress. It's kind of really broad, just anything. Then went into some specifics around relationship and around business and a few other things. But I would when we get into a place where we feel stuck, and I've done this before, I find that it tends to get broader and broader and more negative. So it goes from, there's a specific thing that's a challenge that I can do something about, and then it goes to, my relationships don't work, or the end point of that is that life is terrible.
Yes.
And so even going more and more specific into each of those and going to, well, where exactly do you feel stuck at the moment? When you mention relationships and there's not being where you want to be, what do you mean by that? What does stuck look like for you? So going into that, and then in the same opposite end of what do you want? What sort of relationship would you like in the future? What could that look like? What are the pieces of it? But practically, what would that look like? What sort of person? What would that feel like? Building out those pictures. And I find that when there hasn't been time to think about that specifically, it's in broad terms and it feels very overwhelming.
Yes.
And I know for me personally, when I've got into those spaces, I've normally surrendered a degree of agency where
What do you mean by that, Greg? Surrendering a degree of
well,
agency?
being link back for me, people pleasing is going, what should I do?
Yes.
Who should I be? What goals should I have?
So sorry just to interrupt, but so in that situation, framing this up, so these other patterns that you might be caught in are actually leading you into that cycle and then this outcome.
Sure. It might be that you've been playing a role for quite a while, like you've been playing a role of being a good friend or being a good partner or being a good business owner or whatever, and you're actually playing a role and you haven't actually asked, what do I actually want? Like Greg the person or Mike the person.
What does give you that sense of purpose?
And to your point, what do I actually value? What do I value? And so I think being able to get specific around what's not working and then go, well, what do you want? Sometimes it's a really vulnerable question because you start with some things that you throw out there, this, that, and the other, but they can just be what you think is a good idea.
Yes.
So, but what would be meaningful for you?
Yes.
What would be values aligned for you? And that can be really hard if you haven't asked that question honestly for a while. I know I've taken months and years to actually try and work out what do I want, because it was what I think I should want based on society and friends and everything else.
And then all of the conditioning and the collective consciousness of, it should be career, it should be this, is it measured by finance, et cetera. And so
I should feel this happy, my business should be here. Yeah, all of that. Yeah.
And so, I think there's a couple of really key ideas there. I mean, one of them is basically in the absence of having our own clarity and purpose, we tend to default or inject the ideals or values of others into our life. And, not only is that not purposeful and sincere to us, but it also is going to set up an unrealistic expectation, right? Because if we're acting taking certain actions because we perceive it's what society wants or other wants or someone else wants. Maybe we perceive it's, what our parents wanted for us. Maybe it's, with perhaps our father's best intention, he tried to set us up to live a certain way based on his values. That is projection and that's human nature, nothing wrong with it. But again, is that actually fulfilling and sustaining to us? And that also can be an evolving thing, I know that for many years for me, as I've been building my business, I'd probably say relationships had been much lower on my values. So I'd be much less likely to prioritize or find fulfillment in social catch-ups. But now with business being, really fulfilling and really rewarding, it's, my values have evolved to where relationships have a lot more of a place in my life.